First story. My older daughter got cheated on and lost her best friend, and my delusional kids threw her a birthday party. The oldest was excited and said she needed it. I let my niece blow out the candles, and the oldest kid cried, humiliating me. I called her a selfish brat and told her to move. She didn't, and all my other kids took their sister's side. So I stopped my financial support and ditched their ceremonies. Now all my kids have abandoned me. So my kids 23F, 20M, 16F, 13M planned a surprise party for my oldest, Zara, who just turned 23. For context, we don't do big birthday celebrations in our family once the kids are past 10. Maybe something small at 18 or 21. That's how I was raised and how we've done things in this house. Birthdays are fine, but we've always kept it low-key. So when my younger three started talking about throwing a big surprise party for Zara, I thought it was kind of unnecessary. They insisted, though, and said she really needed something to lift her spirits. She's been having a rough couple of months. She lost her best friend in a car accident back in October, then got dumped by her cheating boyfriend of almost 3 years right after New Year's. So yeah, she's been down. I get that. But I didn't think a big party was the answer, especially not one with all the extended family, decorations, balloons, and cake like she's 10 again. I didn't want to argue, so I stepped back and let the kids handle it. My wife passed a few years ago, so it's been just me and the kids. And I figured if this is how they want to show support, fine. They went all out. My 16-year-old designed a theme. The 20-year-old handled getting all the family together. And the 13-year-old made the cake with 23 candles on it. I helped clean up the garage and backyard where they set everything up, but I didn't do much else. Honestly, I thought it was all a bit much for a grown woman who should probably be looking to find her footing again, instead of crying over a failed relationship. The party was yesterday. Zara walked in, saw everyone yell surprise, and she teared up in a good way. She smiled, hugged everyone, thanked her siblings over and over, and even told me, I really needed this. I thought, okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this is good for her. So the afternoon goes well. Family's around, music's playing, and Zara's chatting with her cousins and aunts, catching up. A few of my siblings were there with their kids. One of my sisters has twin daughters, both 5 years old, and they were full of energy the whole day. Running around, shouting, wanting to be the center of attention, typical stuff. Not bad, kids, just that age. Now here's where the problem starts. Late in the afternoon, the cake comes out. My youngest wheels it in, lit up with candles. Zara's smiling, and her siblings are clapping, and some of the little kids crowd around the table to see. The 5-year-old niece is right in front of the cake next to Zara. Everyone's singing. I'm in the back just watching. When the song ends, Zara leans in to blow the candles out, and just before she can, my niece jumps in and blows out most of them. She's 5. She probably thought it was fun. Everyone laughs. And I mean everyone. The other kids clapped, a few adults chuckled, and even one of the aunts shouted, "She beat you to it." I admit, I smiled. It was innocent. There were still like 5 or 6 candles left. I said, "Go on, blow the rest out," and Zara did. But I could tell right away something changed in her face. Her whole mood shifted. She just looked blank. Then kind of mad. Then she walked off inside without saying anything. It got quiet fast. My sister, the niece's mom, looked uncomfortable and kept saying she didn't think Zara would react like that. She tried to get her daughter to say sorry, but the kid didn't understand what she'd done wrong. She just kept saying, "I wanted to help," and went back to playing. We all tried to move on, but the air was weird. I eventually went inside to talk to Zara, figuring she'd gotten a little emotional and needed a moment. I found her in her room, still in her party clothes. I asked what the big deal was. "It's just candles." She didn't answer me. I told her, "Look, I get it. You've had a tough couple of months, but this, crying over a 5-year-old blowing out some candles. Come on, you're 23, not 3. This isn't how adults act." She still didn't say much, and just kept wiping her face. I told her she was being a selfish brat, making it all about herself, when her siblings worked hard to put that party together for her. That she should be grateful instead of throwing a tantrum in the middle of it. She looked at me like I'd slapped her, then turned away. I left her alone after that. That's when my other kids came to me later saying I was too harsh. That I didn't understand what Zara's been going through. That I embarrassed her in front of the family by minimizing how she felt. My 16-year-old was especially pissed, and told me that Zara probably saw that moment, the cake and the candles, as a symbol of finally being seen and celebrated after feeling invisible for months. And when even that was interrupted, it broke her. I don't see it that way. I think she's being overly sensitive. I mean, who takes candle blowing that seriously? Especially at 23. That stuff's for kids. If anyone should be doing the candle thing, it's the little ones. Or maybe 13 years old at most. Once you're an adult, birthdays are about family, food, and maybe a drink or two. Not about who gets to blow out candles. That's just childish. But my kids are making me feel like I'm the arsehole here for saying what I said. I still don't think I yelled or anything. I told her the truth. And if she's that fragile, maybe she needs someone to be honest with her, instead of tiptoeing around every emotion. Anyway, things got tense after that. Zara stayed in her room for most of the rest of the evening. The rest of the family tried to keep the mood going, but it was off. My sister, the one with the 5-year-old, kept apologizing to me like she was the one who ruined everything. I told her not to worry. It wasn't her fault. Zara overreacted. She offered to go talk to her, but I told her to let it go. There's no point dragging this out longer than needed. Later that night, after everyone left, I tried talking to Zara again. Not to argue, just to clear the air. I told her I wasn't trying to hurt her feelings, but that the whole thing didn't need to become a scene. She said nothing for a minute, then said something like, "You never get it. You never even try." Then she got up and walked past me. She didn't even touch her cake. Her siblings tried to get her to come back out, but she kept the door shut. My 20-year-old told me afterwards that Zara had really opened up to them earlier in the week. That she said this birthday felt heavy, not just because of the friend who died or the breakup, but because it was the first time in months she felt people were looking out for her. That this party, even though it was small and family only, actually meant something. I didn't know all that. Nobody told me she saw it that way, and I still don't think it changes much. Her siblings did a nice thing for her, sure. But blowing up over candles and walking away like that, crying in front of the whole family, what does that teach the younger kids? That it's okay to shut down when something small doesn't go your way? I've raised all 4 of them to be strong, to handle life, even when it's unfair. You don't crumble over birthday traditions. Honestly, I think she embarrassed herself. And me, in front of my siblings and extended family. My sister's kids are little, they're learning. They weren't trying to hurt her. My niece just got excited. It's what 5-year-olds do. Zara used to do the same thing when she was little. She used to sneak candles off her siblings' cakes all the time. Nobody made it a big deal back then. Now suddenly it's a tragedy, because she's going through a rough patch. The next morning, she didn't come down for breakfast. My 16-year-old took a plate up to her room and said she wasn't talking much. I asked if she was still sulking, and she snapped at me. Told me I don't listen. Told me I treat Zara like she's a burden every time she expresses anything I don't personally relate to. That really pissed me off. I've worked my arse off keeping this house running after their mum died. I've put food on the table, helped with college apps, and paid rent when needed. I've been there. Maybe I'm not emotional or whatever, but I show up. That should count for something. But now all 3 of the younger ones are telling me I was wrong. That I should apologize. For what? For being honest. For expecting a 23-year-old to keep it together for 2 seconds, after a 5-year-old got excited and blew out a few candles. And here's another thing. She shut down on Christmas, too, when her ex sent back a box of her things. Locked herself in her room then, too. I tried to tell her to come watch a movie with us, she said no. That she didn't feel like faking it. I left her alone then. Didn't push. Let her grieve in her own way. But how long do I have to tiptoe around her moods? When their mother passed, Zara was 17. She was the one who seemed the most distant during all of it. Never cried in front of anyone. Never talked about it. I figured she processed it differently. Maybe now it's catching up. I don't know. But this whole idea that I'm the bad guy for not matching her emotions, I'm not buying it. I'm the parent. I've got to stay grounded. If I start treating every emotional dip like it's sacred, then what example am I setting? Still, I'm wondering if I missed something. Maybe I underestimated how much this birthday really mattered to her. Maybe the candle thing wasn't the point. Maybe it was just the last straw. But I also think part of growing up is learning that life doesn't hand you picture-perfect moments. You don't get mad when things don't go exactly right. Now my sister's not talking to me either. She says I made her daughter feel bad for nothing, even though I never blamed the kid. I told her Zara needed to grow up. Not that her 5-year-old did anything wrong. I think my sister just feels guilty, and it's easier to throw it on me. Zara hasn't said a word to me in 2 days. I told her dinner was ready last night, and she nodded without looking up. That's it. So I'm asking here because my kids won't let it go. They're telling me I owe her an apology, and that I don't get how fragile she's been lately. That I'm the only one who doesn't see it. I'm not a monster. But I do think someone has to keep their head when everyone else is swimming in emotions. Aita for calling my daughter a selfish brat after she got upset when my 5-year-old niece blew out most of her birthday candles. Comments. Comment 1. So your sister knew her kid was going to blow out the candles and did nothing to stop it. Great parenting. You say she was embarrassed. Good. She should be. That's not a toddler. That's a 5-year-old. Old enough to know what "not your cake" means. She didn't trip and fall into the candles. She took a big breath and went for it. And your sister just stood there. YTA. Comment 2. You're looking at this like it was one moment. It wasn't. It was a buildup. She's grieving. She's heartbroken. She's probably been holding it together because she thinks she has to. Because even when her world collapses, she's told to be strong. That party might have been the first time in months she felt something was for her. That people remembered her. Then a little kid interrupted it, and instead of backing her up, the adults laughed. Then you hit her with "selfish brat." That's not how you support someone who's already struggling. And honestly, let's not pretend hygiene isn't part of this too. Little kids spitting on a cake while they blow out candles isn't cute to everyone. Especially if the cake was made by her brother. Maybe that moment was sacred to her. Maybe she wanted to make a wish for once without someone interrupting. The adults should have kept the kids back. Period. This was a teachable moment for them, not a scolding moment for the one person the party was actually for. YTA. Badly. And I hope you realize it before she stops telling you when she's hurt at all. Comment 3. You said a lot about how you kept your head and stayed logical. But from where I'm sitting, your logic sounds more like avoidance. This isn't just about Zara reacting to candles. It's a buildup. You mentioned she didn't grieve openly when her mum died. That she shut down at Christmas. That she locks herself away when she's hurting. You're giving us a trail of emotional distress, and then acting surprised when it all snapped during a party that was supposed to be for her. Her siblings picked up on it. They planned this for a reason. Meanwhile, you showed up, kept your distance, and treated it like a chore. It's not about the 5-year-old. No one's blaming her. What stings is that Zara's one moment to feel celebrated got shrugged off like it was nothing. And when she showed hurt, you went straight to shame, brat, scene, tantrum. None of that's helpful. You don't need to throw yourself at her feet, but owning that maybe you misread her wouldn't kill you. You didn't fail her by accident. You failed her on autopilot. That's the part you should think about. Comment 4. Yeah, bro, turns out people don't outgrow needing kindness just because they hit 23. Wow, huh? You're out here talking like adults don't blow out candles, while simultaneously getting mad that she didn't keep her chin up and pretend she loved the moment a toddler hijacked. Maybe this wasn't about the candles. Maybe it was about finally getting one thing for herself after months of emotional wreckage. And even that got brushed aside while everyone laughed. You're not just missing her pain, you're actively invalidating it. She's dealing with grief, heartbreak, and isolation. And for one second thought, I matter to someone. And then she got told she was being dramatic because a 5-year-old got overexcited. Sure, the kid didn't mean harm, but that doesn't mean Zara didn't feel it. It's possible for both things to be true without needing a referee. The part that really killed me. You're going full, I provide food and pay rent, like that erases emotional damage. Congrats, you did the bare minimum as a parent and want a cookie for it. Affection and understanding aren't rewards you hand out once someone passes a strength test. Jesus. Update. I didn't expect my original post to blow up like that. I read through hundreds of comments, most of which were calling me names, assuming the worst, and trying to psychoanalyze my entire history as a father based on one event. I figured some people might disagree with how I handled things, but the level of outrage, way over the top. Let me be clear. I never said my daughter's grief wasn't real. I know Zara's been in a dark place. I'm not cold to that. I've given her space, paid for her therapist when she asked for one, kept the house quiet when she was having bad days, and never pushed her to talk if she wasn't ready. I just expected a little maturity. That's it. She's 23. Yes, she's had loss. Yes, she's been through a breakup. But so have a lot of people, including me. I lost my wife. I buried the mother of my children. I didn't make everything around me revolve around that. I still got up and handled what had to be handled. So when I see my adult daughter walking out of a party over something as minor as birthday candles, while her siblings are bending over backwards to support her, I react based on the effort I saw them put in and the way she shut them out. Anyway, here's what's happened since. My sister, the one with the 5-year-old, and I had a falling out. I told her straight up that the incident with her daughter set off this entire mess. Her kid blew out someone else's candles. And instead of redirecting her or stepping in, she laughed along with everyone else. I told her she should have taught her daughter better, especially knowing Zara's been fragile lately. She didn't take it well, claimed I was scapegoating her daughter for a crisis I caused. Now she's not speaking to me either. She pulled out of a family dinner last weekend and said she won't be involved until things are safe for her kid. So now I'm toxic for defending my adult daughter's siblings and saying a toddler needs guidance. The real shock came a few days after the party. I suggested taking Zara away for the weekend, a nice gesture. I figured maybe if we got some time away, we could clear the air. I offered to pay for a cabin by the coast and bring the younger two along, no pressure. Her siblings could come too. But when I mentioned it, they looked at me like I'd lost it. My 20-year-old said, "She doesn't want to be stuck in a cabin with you pretending everything's fine." That hit harder than I'll admit. I told them fine, if she doesn't want to go, I'll still book it for her and whoever she wants to bring. My treat. They said she already made other plans. Turns out they've been talking behind my back and planning a redo weekend, just the four of them. A rented Airbnb, some hikes, and a spa day for Zara. Everything I tried to offer, but without me. No one told me. I only found out when I overheard the youngest asking if he should pack sunscreen. So they're doing this now, making plans as a unit and just cutting me out. I tried to talk to the 16-year-old about it and tell her this kind of behavior just widens the gap. I said if she's taking their side so strongly, ignoring what I've done for this family, then maybe I should start reconsidering how much financial support I continue offering. She's in extracurriculars and prep courses, and I've always covered those. I told her it's a two-way street. If she's going to paint me as the enemy and stand with her siblings unconditionally, then I won't be bending over backwards to support her special events, travel teams, or other wants. I also told her she could use her influence and ask Zara and the others to take the first step to apologize for humiliating me in my own home during a party I allowed to happen. She didn't say anything for a few seconds, then told me, "You're choosing pride over family again." That line's been sitting in my head for days. She didn't even ask me to reconsider. She just walked off and told the 20-year-old everything. Now they're both giving me the cold shoulder. The youngest is still talking to me, but even he's quieter than usual. The house feels different. Not angry, just removed. I've been here before after my wife died. The air got like this. But back then, I knew it was grief. This time, it's distance. Deliberate. Then there was the package. A few days after the party, Zara got a small box in the mail. The return label was from one of her former high school teachers. She opened it while I was in the room. I only stayed because she hadn't said a word to me in days, and I was hoping this would thaw things. It was a necklace. Nothing flashy. Just a simple chain with a tiny charm and a note. "You've always had light in you. I see it even now. Happy birthday, Z." She didn't cry. She smiled. And I haven't seen her smile like that in months. I tried to ask her what class the teacher was from. She just nodded and left the room. I know it's petty, but that moment stayed with me more than anything. I offered a whole weekend getaway. I've been paying rent and therapy and groceries. And all it takes is a $40 necklace from someone she hasn't seen in years to get a smile. It made me feel replaced, like everything I've done doesn't register because it doesn't come in the right emotional package. It got worse. I found out the 13-year-old had written Zara a birthday card. I didn't even know about it until I saw it sitting on the counter 2 nights ago. He had written in his messy handwriting, "You're the strongest person I know. I'm sorry for what happened. You deserved more." I stood there staring at it for minutes. He hadn't said a word about it to me. No one had. This house isn't just off balance, it's somewhere else now. I'm not included. They've built their own inner circle, and I'm just on the outside funding it. And when I try to step in, it's too little, too late, or you don't get it. Even at work, it followed me. I tried telling a coworker the story, a guy I thought would get it. He has older kids too. I said something like, "Can you believe she walked out over a candle moment?" He just shook his head and said, "Sounds like your daughter needed more than you realized." Then he went back to typing. No joke. Not even a joke to soften the blow. That stuck with me more than the online comments. Zara barely speaks to me now. She's respectful, but it's like she's doing a job when she says anything. I can tell she's made peace with something, and that peace doesn't include me. And yeah, I'm considering stopping financial support for the adult kids still on my payroll. It's not about revenge. It's about sustainability. If I'm this awful person, then they should want independence from me anyway. Actions have consequences. You can't ice someone out and still expect the check to clear. People said in the comments. Maybe the candles were symbolic. Maybe they were. I still don't fully see it. I don't connect birthdays to grief and loss like she apparently does. She still has family that cares. But I guess, in her eyes, that doesn't include me anymore. I don't know how to fix it if I'm not even allowed in the room. Comments. Comment 1. You're mad your kids are doing stuff without you. But dude, they've been doing life without you. Emotionally, you're just catching up to that now. They plan a weekend. You sulk. They write each other cards. You snoop. Your daughter smiles for the first time in weeks. And instead of feeling relieved, you take it personally, like it was meant to spite you. That's some heavy narcissistic energy right there. The 16-year-old's going to remember this forever. She tried to talk to you, and you threw money in her face and told her to beg her siblings for your forgiveness. You didn't lose them because they're sensitive. You lost them because you made love transactional and expected gratitude for being less cruel than you could have been. Honestly, they've already moved on emotionally. You're just funding the family until they're done needing your wallet. Comment 2. It's surreal reading this. I was the kid who kept my mouth shut, followed the rules, and never made waves. The mature one, just like Zara. I get why the candles broke her. I get why the necklace mattered more than your offer. You've built a life where everything you do for them has your expectations stapled to it. So when someone does something kind with no strings, it hits different. It hits real. And that letter from the 13-year-old? Probably the first time she felt seen in her own family. You didn't notice it. You didn't ask about it. You just stood there measuring your value against a teacher's necklace like you were in some competition. You missed the point again. This whole post feels like a man staring at the wreckage and blaming the wind for not warning him sooner. Comment 3. You say you want healing, but every single thing you do pushes her further out. You offered her a weekend away like it was a peace offering, but then you insisted on coming along. That's not a gift. That's a PR move. And when they didn't jump at the chance to babysit your wounded pride for 2 days, you turned around and threatened to cut their support. That 16-year-old's comment, choosing pride over family, nailed it. You keep saying you're doing things for them, but all I see is you trying to buy their loyalty while calling them ungrateful the second they don't fall in line. If your love and support have fine print attached, that's not parenting. That's a contract. And no one wants to sign it anymore. Comment 4. So let me get this straight. Your daughter is grieving the loss of 2 relationships, finally smiles for the first time in ages because a teacher bothered to remember her birthday, and you treat that as a threat to your importance. Then you turn around and punish your 16-year-old for showing empathy, expecting her to act as your emotional go-between just to earn back your affection. Bro, what even is this? They're not excluding you. You excluded yourself the moment you turned their support into a loyalty test, and threatening to pull the plug on financial support for emotional honesty. That's not parenting. That's power tripping. They're done waiting for you to show up. You just haven't figured it out yet. Update. It's been a few months since all of this started, and things haven't gotten better, just colder. The house is almost empty now. The only one still living here full-time is my youngest, 15. The other 3 moved out gradually. First Zara, then my 21-year-old, and most recently my 18-year-old daughter. She picked up a part-time job and said she could manage without help. They all refused any financial support from me. Flat out said they didn't want my money anymore. I didn't expect that. I thought the whole cut me off emotionally, but keep the direct deposit thing would last longer. But no, they're committed, and it stings more than I'm letting on. What makes it worse is how they seem to function better without me. They still meet up. They still do birthday dinners, Sunday hikes, and movie nights just without me. When I found out, they all went to the 18-year-old school awards ceremony last month, and I wasn't even told about it. I realized just how far gone I am from whatever their version of family is now. I didn't forget the event. I had promised to be there months earlier, back when things were still shaky, but not shattered. But after our last fight, when she told me to stop threatening financial consequences for her loyalty, I pulled out. I said if she wasn't going to respect me as a parent, she shouldn't expect me to sit there like nothing happened. I meant it at the time. But when I saw the pictures later, her with her siblings, big smile, holding the certificate, I felt replaced. Like I was the one person missing in a version of our family that still worked. Then came the 21-year-old's birthday. I didn't acknowledge it. I told myself I was holding my ground, standing by what I said about respect going both ways. But it didn't feel good. I kept checking my phone anyway, thinking maybe he'd message me first. He didn't. His siblings posted a group photo with him holding a small cake. The caption said, "Family sticks." I knew what it meant. Everyone else probably thought it was harmless. I knew it was for me. The worst of it might be what happened with the youngest. He's always been the quietest. Smart kid. Keeps to himself. I think he tried the longest to stay neutral. But one night, after a rough day at work, I lost it and told him maybe he should go stay with his siblings too, if he thought I was so awful. I didn't mean it. It came out in the middle of an argument about something dumb, dishes, homework. I don't even remember. But he froze, went quiet, and then he started packing. I panicked. Told him I didn't mean it. Said I was angry and tired and said the wrong thing. Begged him to stay. And he did, but everything's different now. He barely talks. We eat dinner separately. His bedroom door is always closed. And I keep catching him texting his siblings more than usual. I know the drift has started. I also found out Zara's been seeing her therapist again, regularly this time. Apparently, the therapist suggested she minimize contact with people who've historically made her feel small. I only know this because I heard the 18-year-old talking about it on the phone. It's weird how much information I get now from overheard conversations and social media posts. I used to be the center of this family. Now I'm a ghost watching my own kids build a life around avoiding me. I thought about reaching out directly, calling Zara and offering to take her out to dinner, one-on-one. I even drafted a message. Then I deleted it. I keep thinking about how she used to be. How, when she was little, she'd sit with me on the couch every night after dinner. How she didn't cry when her mother died, just stayed in her room with headphones on. I thought back then that meant she was handling it well. But I look at everything now and wonder if I missed something important. Maybe she was screaming the whole time, just not out loud. I'm confused. That's the truth of it. The mindset I used to raise them, keeping emotions measured, staying grounded, pushing past hard feelings to focus on the next thing, it worked. Or I thought it did. It got them through school. It got them through losing their mom. It got me through countless nights when the house felt too damn big for one man. But now it feels like all that discipline turned into distance. Like they needed softness, and I gave them rules. They needed comfort, and I gave them order. I don't hate my kids. I just don't understand them right now. And yeah, I get angry sometimes. I say the wrong thing. I fall back on old habits, ones that helped me survive, but maybe didn't help them feel loved. But does that make me irredeemable? If a bunch of teenagers and early 20s adults can walk around with this much ego and cut out the man who raised them, then how much more patience is expected from me? I'm still their father. I still paid for their lives, stood by when their world fell apart, and held the line when everything else was chaos. But lately, I feel like I'm being judged by standards no one ever taught me to live by. I keep telling myself, this is just a rough time. Raw emotions. That things will eventually settle. But every time I try to take a step forward, I get reminded how far behind I really am. I want my kids back. I want to sit at a table with all of them again and not feel like a stranger. But I don't know how to get there without feeling like I'm walking into a room where I already lost the vote. Comments. Comment 1. Zara's former teacher sent her a charm with a note that probably took 10 minutes to write, and it cracked open something you hadn't touched in years. That should have been your wake-up call. But you turned it into a measuring contest. You've built your whole identity around being the one who stayed, the one who paid, and the one who held it together. Fine. But they didn't need a provider who cataloged receipts. They needed a parent who noticed, who adapted, who made space for change. The version of love you're holding on to doesn't land anymore. You think they're confused, but they're not. They're free. And now you're the only one standing still. Comment 2. You pushed them away and called it principle. You pulled out of events and called it holding your ground. You weaponized your wallet, your silence, and your disappointment, and when they didn't fold, then you called it ego. You know what it is? They finally outgrew the emotional leash you kept them on. They're not being dramatic. They're effing tired. Tired of begging you to see them. Tired of getting lectures instead of warmth. Tired of having their feelings filtered through your spreadsheet of everything I've done for this family. You want them back. You don't get there by demanding seats at tables they set without you. You sit in the damn hallway and earn it. Brick by brick. Humble. Quiet. And for once in your life, without expecting a parade when you do the bare minimum. Comment 3. Reading this feels like deja vu, man. I kept thinking my kids were just ungrateful too until one day, they stopped arguing. They stopped defending themselves. They just stepped back. And I told myself I won because they stopped fighting me. But all I did was make myself too exhausted to come home to. What killed me was realizing I had mistaken silence for peace. You keep saying you want them back, but nothing in your story shows you trying to understand the actual damage. You're doing the math on your contributions while ignoring the emotional overdraft you racked up year after year. If you still think this is about a birthday party or some Reddit comments, you haven't even found the beginning of the path back. Comment 4. I don't think you realize how permanent this might be. You keep acting like the story is still unfolding, like if you just say the right combination of words or sit through enough quiet dinners, they'll drift back towards you. But people remember the feeling of being small, of being dismissed, of having their emotions processed through someone else's lens and deemed invalid. You talk about saving your kids with this mindset. It didn't save them. It trained them to perform grief and struggle in ways you'd accept. And the second they stopped performing, you called it ego. You're not confused. You're just watching the consequences hit and realizing no one's rushing in to clean it up for you. Second story. I got the chance with the one that got away after 8 years, and I don't want to miss her again. But I also don't want to hurt her or myself. I'm now 33M. Lee fake name, BTW is 33F. I met her in our first year of university, and we dated into our mid-20s, moving in together along the way. The relationship was everything I could ever want. But eventually questions that don't really come up at age 18 started to matter. And we found ourselves at an impasse. She wanted kids at some point, not at that very moment. I didn't at all, not just at that moment. We buried our heads in the sand for a couple of years. I guess we were just hoping the other would change their mind, until it got clear we wouldn't. And we called it quits. That pretty significant roadblock was basically the only thing holding us back from getting engaged right then and there. So when things ended, I didn't know what to do with myself. I got it. I didn't want to be the reason Lee wouldn't have something she clearly wanted. But it was rough. Over the next year, there were a few times when I was damn close to calling her to say I'd changed my mind, just to get her back. I'm not sure if I was planning to make do with that change of heart and be a father to kids I didn't really want, or if I would have just lied to her long enough to get my way. Both seem pretty SHTTY. But anyway, it thankfully didn't get to that. But eventually I moved on, got back out there, and 8 years later, I've had a handful of relationships, including a couple I'd say got serious, the latest of which ended around a year ago. I have nothing negative to say about the women I've dated, but it never clicked like it did with Lee, which I guess is why they eventually fizzled out around the 1-year mark. Back to Lee, we never technically burned bridges and even said we'd stay friends, but for most of the time that has passed since we broke up, we didn't make good on that. We were in contact occasionally, but far from frequently, and mostly kept it surface level, to the point that saying we were friends would be a significant stretch. That started to change last spring, as our infrequent chats slowly, but surely turned into frequent hangouts. Of course, officially we were merely reconnecting as friends. But when two single 30-somethings with a lot of history are spending more and more time together, while conspicuously not making much of an attempt to see other people, it shouldn't be a massive surprise that things may not remain completely platonic forever. It did take a while, though, but just last week one of us finally took a decisive step to change the status quo. We spent a bunch of time together over the holidays, hanging out at my place on Xmas, and attending a New Year's Eve party together as friends, of course, for example. I guess it's then that Lee got tired of me keeping the platonic pretense up and decided to take things into her own hands. And when we saw each other last week, she came out and told me she wants us to be together again. She directly addressed the elephant in the room, the reason we broke up, and said she doesn't expect me to have changed my mind and is fine with that. She said she'd had a few pretty good relationships over the last years, but that she never quite felt like she did with me, and that reconnecting over the past year had confirmed to her that I still made her feel those things that others just don't. She said we don't have to jump right back into where we were all those years ago, and that she just wants to give us another try. She told me to think it over, and that's where I'm at, and feeling kind of lost. Because yes, in my immeasurable genius, and despite having realized months ago that my feelings for her had in fact returned, because of course they have, I opted to wait until now to give some thought as to what I'd do if she felt the same and brought it up. On the one hand, of course, I want to try again. But while Lee told me she's fine with my stance on having kids, she didn't outright say that she doesn't still want them. I probably should have asked right then. But immeasurable genius, you know. In my defense, I had a few things to process. Okay. So are we trying again to once again kick back and down the road in hope the other changes their mind? I've also had a vasectomy. So yeah, I think I'd win that one. Or is she outright willing to give up on that for me? And if it's the latter, that's a pretty significant concession. And am I comfortable with the idea she might wake up in X years regretting her choice when it's actually too late? And then there's the fact that, okay, we can take things slow or fast or whatever. But if things went south again with us, it would be a pretty tough hit for me to tank, if the first time was any indication. And finally, yes, I know that if I want to actually get answers, I kind of just need to talk to Lee about all of this, which I already plan to when I next see her in a few days. And I should probably tell her about the vasectomy either way. I'm not expecting Reddit to have all the answers to this, and mostly typed it out to help put my thoughts in order. Comments. Comment 1. The having not having kids part is rough. And each of you has to be absolutely certain in their stance on this. So this absolutely needs to be your priority. But to be honest, at this point, I'd almost be more afraid that you two are in love with the idea of your past. The version from 8 years ago. It's been a long time, and a lot of growing and maturing has hopefully happened on both sides. Take your time to properly get to know today's version of each other. OP, that's fair. I do think I've seen enough of her in the past year to know that I'm very much into what she's become, some of it familiar and some of it fresh. But it's true that we last were a couple ages ago, and the memory of that relationship definitely contributes to how I feel about her now, perhaps more than it should. But I think she realizes that, which is why she suggested we take it slow, and not try to just hit resume. Side funny note on the passage of time. We actually watched most of the final season of Stranger Things together recently. And it was kind of a trip to think about how we started that show when we were a couple. It doesn't feel like those should be two things that belong in the same temporality. But I'm not sure which one my perception is warped on. Comment 2. I think 2 conversations might help. Why don't you want kids? Is it hereditary traits you don't want to pass down, financial issues, too much responsibility, etc.? What prompted her to change her mind? I always thought I would 100% want kids, but as I've gotten older, I've definitely been reconsidering things. So tread carefully. She may have changed her mind, but who's to say it'll stay that way? I think finding out why she doesn't want kids now will help you gauge that. OP, so as for one, what I'll say is that it's quite personal, beyond what I'm comfortable sharing with strangers, even under the cover of anonymity. It's not medical or financial, and while I do enjoy the freedom being child-free brings, it's also not the main reason. The last thing I'll say is that Lee does know why. As for 2, I definitely intend to discuss this with her, where she stands exactly and the why. Comment 3. It seems like she's just giving in. If I were you, I wouldn't go back to her. This problem will probably come up again at some point. And if you don't care anyway, and you do go back to her, I recommend you see a doctor to check that the vasectomy is still working. OP, I've done vasectomy checkups before. But just one thing I'll say in case this was the implication, not sure it was. To be clear, if I had any thought she would ever attempt to or hope to baby trap me, I wouldn't be considering this with or without a working vasectomy. Comment 4. Bro, I didn't want kids, and my GF did. I chose her. I wasn't about to lose the love of my life, because I didn't want kids at the time 20s, and she did. We have been married for 24 years and have 2 boys. I wouldn't change a thing. I have the woman I have loved every single day, and I have 2 terrific boys that are now in college. Sometimes you don't know until it happens. It's not always easy, but when you have someone that you know is 100% there to help pick you up when you fall, it makes things a lot easier. Stop wasting time. You two clearly love each other, and if kids happen, kids happen. You have each other, which, in 30-40 years, you will realize was the best choice you could have made. OP, I'm really happy things worked out for you, but I don't think I can quite approach it like you did. Not least of which because of the vasectomy. So kids won't just happen, and she needs to know that. But also because I tried to see it that way back then, before Lee and I broke up, but when we knew it was hovering over us if nothing budged. But I couldn't convince myself that I might change my mind then, and I haven't felt like I would since either. And I know, people have told me that they felt like that until they had kids, and it changed their POV, but purely personally, it's not something I've felt like I could roll the dice on. Update. I'd already invited Lee to come over for dinner on Wednesday prior to sending out the original post, which, as the day came, felt both far too soon and like I couldn't wait much longer. When Lee got to my place, I opted to have the big conversation right out of the gate, realizing it might spoil the evening. But really, I don't think I'd have made for a very pleasant dinner partner with this rather pivotal conversation hanging over our heads. I started with the good stuff, telling Lee how much I loved that she was part of my life again, and that I shared every feeling she voiced last time. That I never felt like I did with her, either then or now, with anyone else. But that she'd correctly guessed that my position on having kids hadn't changed, that I had in fact had a vasectomy, and that if we were to try again, I would need to know that she's truly okay with this, and isn't sacrificing something she might regret. That I'd love to give us another shot. But that she deserves to be happy and fulfilled. And that if I can't be the one to make that happen, the fact she hasn't found the right one yet doesn't mean she won't. Fun fact. Telling the woman you love that there might be another guy out there who'd make her happier than you could is not in fact fun. Lee replied that she thought I might say something along those lines, and that she'd been anything but rash in making that decision. She admitted that she'd always pictured herself having kids at some point. And it's not like she woke up one day and any such desire had just vanished. But she once thought it'd be something she'd need by age 30, until she found herself past that arbitrary deadline, without kids, and yet generally content with her life. That she's got a niece she loves very much and a nephew on the way, and that she'd been questioning if she truly needed kids of her own before she and I even reconnected. Confessing that this evolving outlook was part of why she'd even allowed herself to get close to me again. She conceded that she didn't become opposed to the idea of having kids either. But that at this point she wouldn't call it a sacrifice, but rather just a choice, one that feels right to her. Now, I'm probably not the most objective person to say this, but I felt that this was a pretty damn convincing sales pitch. I did tell her that, as she'd suggested, taking things slow was most likely the right call, and that it entailed that I would understand if she re-examined that choice, and only asked that she'd be open with me about it. But that in light of this, I'd love to take her out on a date at the first opportunity if she would have me. She replied that she'd love that before poking fun at my framing of us going on a date being a new thing. As though we hadn't spent the past several months seeing each other regularly for one-on-one dinners and other similarly intimate settings, ongoing evenings included, which I countered, saying that I hoped by the end of said date, she'd notice a marked difference between those times and this next one. Getting the big talk out of the way early thankfully turned out to be the right call since its outcome was a positive one, and we had a lovely time together for the next few hours. Nothing too materially different from our recent hangouts, so far save for a bit of flirting, some gentle touches here and there, and a goodbye hug that lingered longer than usual. But it felt good to just be with Lee without having to pretend that my heart doesn't skip a beat every time she flashes me a smile. So right now I'm planning our first date and kind of sitting on cloud 9. There probably won't be another update anytime soon. I appreciate the feedback I got the first time, and will read what people have to say here as well. But I don't think writing a play-by-play of this new relationship would make for the best way to enjoy each step that may come. I will soft commit to an update at some point. But that's contingent on 1, me remembering to do that, 2, having stuff to share that I actually want to type out and put in the wild, and 3, I'll most likely show these to Lee eventually. And whether you guys ever hear from me again will also be up to her. Comments. Comment 1. Not every experience is loud or obvious, but that doesn't make it insignificant. Comment 2. OP. From the other side, I'll tell you this. My husband and I had been together 8 years before we got married. We were happily child-free. Then, in the year before we married, I got the urge for kids. It was intense. And I decided I couldn't imagine a life without them anymore. I sat my now husband down to discuss it. I was open about the fact I knew it could mean the end of our relationship, and I was ready to accept that. He decided he was okay with us having kids. It took us years to conceive, and we have a perfect little boy now. He's 8 months old, and he's just the world to us both. His daddy adores him, and I love watching them together. We also still love each other very deeply. Having our son has cemented for us both that we are each other's person. However, I realized after having our son that had my husband said he couldn't do it, and had I chosen to walk away to have a child with another person, I likely would have regretted it for the rest of my life. I love my son. I love my son in a way I never expected, and he brings me nothing but joy. But even knowing the love I know now, I would choose my husband over having had a child. I hope this makes some kind of sense. But it sounds to me like perhaps your person has realized having a child isn't worth the loss of your love. Comment 3. Everyone's experience will be different. I know I probably wouldn't accept not having kids, and luckily my wife would be the same with someone since she wanted them. The only impasse we have now is how many. We have 2 now, and I'm okay. I'm not against more, but it's just the economy and the future are much less certain now. And our second didn't want to come out, so she was quite uncomfortable for the last couple of weeks, and I'd rather her not experience that again. Meanwhile, she keeps pestering me about how our youngest shouldn't be the youngest, how they should have a little brother or sister, etc. etc. I know she wants a third and possibly more, but I just don't think it's feasible, and it's one of those stuck decisions where we are not getting any younger. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.